So lesson number 3 is know when to let go. And this is such a big one. And there's two sides to it. There's knowing when to let go of something tangible. For me, this was ballet. I was really, really sick starting when I was just turning 17. And I held on for a year and a half. I held on so hard, trying to force my body to heal, trying to manipulate my schedule so that I could continue dancing. At the time, I was dancing probably 50 or 60 hours a week. I was at the studio from 8 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. And I remember there were so many times where I was so physically ill that I would have to sit down in the middle of class and try not to vomit. And even in that, even when my body was essentially being tortured by my desire to hold on to this dream that I once had, I still held on and I held on and I held on until eventually a doctor told me, you have to stop or you're not going to be able to keep going. And I remember that was such a powerful moment for me because, again, going back to lesson number 2, life gave me exactly what I needed. I needed someone to look me in the eye and say, you are physically harming yourself holding on to this dream in order to be able to let it go. And at the same time, that moment made me look back at the past year and realize that I should have let it go a long time ago. And I wasn't able to. I didn't have the courage. And I don't regret that because it was a beautiful lesson for me. And it was something, that year and a half of intense struggle was something that allowed me to, again, get to where I am today. But I needed that perspective to be able to look back and say, I should have let it go when it was ready to let go. That year and a half was so much harder than it needed to be because I was so afraid to let go. And the other side of this is knowing when to let go of the stories that you tell yourself. And my favorite example of this actually happened earlier this month. Like I mentioned last year, I was really entrenched in these symptoms of PTSD and working through my own healing. And I remember in January, so the beginning of January this year, I went to an appointment with my therapist and I was telling her about the situation that had made me so frustrated. And frustration and anger is an emotion that I haven't let myself feel for most of my life. And I've created a story around that. The reason I don't let myself feel that is because it was punished so harshly when I was a child, when I had anger. And I was telling her about the situation that made me frustrated. And then I started telling her the reasons that I thought I was frustrated about. And I know this is happening because this happened when I was a kid and it made me think this, and now this is the belief and blah, blah. And my therapist cut me off and she looked at me and she said, what if it was just a frustrating situation? And I have never felt so put in my place in a therapy session as I was in that moment, because it was just this eye-opening moment of realizing that I had carried that story of my trauma. I had carried that story of woe is me, look at what happened to me and what it did to me for too long. I was ready to let that go. I was ready to just say, I'm frustrated because this was a frustrating situation, instead of dragging that with me and saying, I'm frustrated because I was hurt when I was a child. And that has been such a powerful revelation for me, because we talk so often about how awareness is the first step to healing, and it is. It absolutely is. And once we've been through that awareness, once we've processed things, the next step is knowing when to let go. And that's something that I don't think I was ever taught in this spiritual journey, right? Everybody talks about awareness and getting there and processing and healing. And so few people get to the point where they're ready to know when to let go. And so that has been a really beautiful lesson in my own life that's still playing out to this day.